The Dick Cavett Show. Tonight with special guest, Robert Mitchum. Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Cavett.
Save some for Mitchum. The strange thing, Cavett and Mitchum, that combination seems a little odd to me. It's sort of like Doris Day and the Family Stone or something. It's just never thought of myself. Well, anyway, here we are, and nice to see you. And by the way, I had a monologue that I'm not going to do because it would have just brought down the house, but we talked to the building inspector, and the balcony's in danger as it is, so I've been in the... Think of it this way, people in the balcony. There's no chance the orchestra will fall on you, so it's actually an advantage to be up there. It's better in this theater than my old theater. I used to complain my first show for ABC. Remember that old dump? It's still there, isn't it?
Colonial, yes.
Yeah. What a dump. It was, there weren't even loudspeakers about beyond halfway back. I'd tell a joke, and then I would have to say, pass it on, and the people would say, moving it back. Hey, nearby here, it happened again. It happens every week in New York. A lady gave birth in a cab. Did you read about that? Actually, she had to. She, after having paid the new cab fare, couldn't afford the hospital. Oh, if you want to, sure. I had a strange thought. Do you ever remember, let me rephrase that. Do you ever wonder, something that ends in ER, what happens to defeated politicians who spend all their money in the campaign? And you never hear. I've worried about them many times. For example, in New York, we had a campaign, the slogan of which was Ottinger delivers, right? Today, I ordered from Colonel Sanders, and guess who brought it? But I want to tell you, hey, I can give you another tip, a restaurant to avoid. Are you from out of town? The restaurant on the Hudson where it says everything caught on premises. It's right on the water, and it says that. And everything is hepatitis, typhoid. I came through Penn Station today. I saw the 1218 pull in. That's the year it left. Did you know that yesterday, I think it was yesterday, a would-be suicide stood on the tracks of the Penn Central, and today they arrested him for loitering. Listen, I don't want to waste too much of your time because of who's here, but if you notice, this monologue is sort of timeless in a sense. I don't mean immortal, but I mean it's... This show is being taped a little out of sequence. It won't necessarily be seen the night we tape it, even though at home you're seeing it right now, aren't you? I can never get used to that, but... Because it's hard not to talk about the fight, which is on everyone's mind, and is in a couple days. But we're not taping that far in advance, so I guess I could make a prediction, even though the show will be seen, that Patterson will beat Johansson. But anyway, we have... We'll be back with Robert Mitchum. I'll believe it when I see it. We'll be right back. Stay where you are. Here we are. No, I couldn't continue our conversation because I'm on television now, you see. Not that I'm ashamed of you. My first and only guest tonight, probably my last tonight, since he'll be here through the whole show, is a man who's made over 100 movies. And yet he said once, if I ever acted in my whole life, I did it without knowing. Starlets have ripped off their apparel at the sight of him. He has been married, however, to the same woman for 30 years. Charles Laughton said about him once, he's a very tender man, a very great gentleman, one of my favorite people in the whole world, unquote. And he has, however, been known in his day, from beginning to end, to terrify interviewers. I'm assuming this is not the end, of course, tonight. He was a study in contradictions. They say that about him, all those cliches, but certainly a fascinating man. And he is, as you all know, a very big star. We welcome, please, Mr. Robert Mitchum. Let's see. I think if one more person had told me how many times you've terrified interviewers, I wouldn't have been able to do this tonight. Is that exaggerated at all? How do you generally go about it?
I really don't know. I don't feel that I terrify interviewers. They more or less terrify me. There's a lady present who knows something about my reputation with interviewers. For instance, one time I was working at RKO, which was, you know, I was a fixture. Every studio had one mule, and I was their mule. And there was an English lady whose name was Violet. I remember that.
Violet?
Violet, yeah. Mm-hmm. And this has been credited to a lot of other ladies, but anyway, she was sitting in the dressing room, and I was working on a picture with Janie Russell, and she said, "Is this your first film with Miss Russell?" And I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Do you enjoy working with Miss Russell?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Do you plan any further films with Miss Russell?" And I said, "No." Because, you know, mine wasn't the planning department, you know. Mine was the yes and no, you know. So she said, "Do you like this film?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I enjoy making it," you know. I said, "But, you know." She said, "Don't you think it's a good film?" I said, "It's a lousy film." So she burst into tears and ran out, and she said, "I can't talk to him." Well, I answered every question, you know, as well as I possibly could, but...
But maybe she was supposed to do a 2,000-word article, and she would have appreciated the probably longer answers. That's
well, a lot of
thing.
times, I said, yeah, I guess, you know, but I'm not there really for her edification, you know. Her.
Well, you've never had a... Is it true you've never had a press agent?
I said that one time, and I think Joyce Haber said that it was quoted by a press agent, by my press agent. I don't know. I don't recall having one. I suppose when I was under contract to various studios or various organizations, there were press agents, you know.
But you've never sought publicity. It isn't part of your nature to,
God,
like to...
no. I'm trying to hide.
Yeah. How do you explain that? People often suspect that about an actor, or they say, why would a guy go into the business and get his face up on the screen or go on the stage, and then how can he claim that he's trying to...
Well, you don't know that until after it happens, you know, because the privilege of anonymity, I mean, every man's right and gift is it's too late once it's gone. You know, once they've seen that big red Monday morning eye up on the glorious cinemascopic screen and full red living color, everybody knows you and you don't know nobody. You know, it's kind of a hard way to go.
Was that a shock for you the first time when you saw your own big eye up on that screen? Was it the way you thought it would look?
Tell you the truth, first time I saw myself on the screen, I was in a theater with my wife, and it was a Hopalong Cassidy, I think. And there were two women sitting before us in the Pantages Theater, and this woman said, "My God," she said, "who is that man?" She said, "That is the most immoral face I've ever seen."
Most immoral face?
Yeah, yeah.
That probably gave you the courage to go on, I would think. It would me, anyway.
Really?
Maybe she said immortal face.
No, indeed. No. She was very clear. She was very clear about it. The only thing is that it gave rise to a ceaseless suspicion in my poor wife.
I bet it did.
I live with it.
Yeah. Let's get this one out of the way right now. What is the secret of a 30-year marriage? I'll never ask you or anyone else that again.
Deviousness, I should think.
No one ever need ask that question again. I guess
Practice it.
that's the answer that's been wanted for a long time. Hopalong Cassidy, you said you weren't kidding about that. Were you in Hoppy Serves a Writ?
Yeah.
I saw it.
No kidding.
My favorite.
I looked like Mickey Mouse. I was all beard, you know, which sort of cut my face off to here. Poor, sad little face.
Huh?
All beard, very little dialogue. And I had a deep, heavy bass baritone voice, you know. And directors would say, he was a singer. I said, no. You know. Well, finally, after I quit horses and started on girls, I had to modulate my voice, you know, because otherwise the needle would go like that.
Explain what the needle is for people.
Well, on the mixer, you know, the sound department. It was sound. We were talking by then.
Oh, I know you were in. I know you've been in a couple of talkies. Hopalong Cassidy, though, that's odd to think of you in those now. Those were your first film jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a.
It was kind of my road game, you know. I mean, every time.
What is a road game?
Well, if everybody got a road game, got a way to go. If I had nothing else to do, you know, nothing else was working, if I didn't have another job, I could always get a job on a Hopalong Cassidy because they made them endlessly, you know. I think they made 2 pictures in every 3 weeks. They do the interiors of one and then the exteriors of both and then the interiors of the second, come back to the studio, you know. And very good. It was a good, healthy outdoor life, you know, $100 a week, all the horsemen you could carry home. Playing cowboys and Indians, picnicking in the grass. It was okay.
The danger, of course, with the horses. A lot of guys aren't used to them. And
Yeah,
they
there
get
was
hurt.
that.
Yeah. Did you ever get hurt by a horse?
At first sight, first I was sore.
Yeah.
Then I was thrown. First day I went to work. The horse threw me 40 feet, and he'd come screaming, you know, after me with big piano key teeth, and I'm rolling around, throwing stones at him, and they rope him down. You know, it was funny. He threw me 4 times, and I finally took around the corner and worked them over a little bit.
Did you?
They applauded that.
Reasoned with the horse, probably. How do you do that?
Hit him.
Oh.
I did. I mean, it's the only they had. They issued me a big bone-handled 45, and every time he started to buckle up, I just tapped between the horns and straightened out.
Didn't anyone tell you that a horse doesn't have horns? That was no. I couldn't resist that.
News
I'm
to
sorry.
me.
But why would they give you a wild horse? Was there somebody? Did
Funny.
somebody have it in for? They thought it would be a laugh.
Cowboy humor.
Give them a. Was it an unbroken horse? What they call
No,
unbroken?
it was just a bronc, you know. Been a rodeo bronc.
And you
hurt a
needed the
few
job
people.
so bad you got back on. Wouldn't you think of quitting and then let some?
No way, man.
Yeah.
Not at those prices. I just quit Lockheed.
Lockheed.
Oh, yeah. Set out in the world to become a glamorous movie actress. Later for that quitting.
Yeah. I have a question about that because it brings up something interesting that we have a message. Mr. Mitchum, you talked about that time you were working for Lockheed, and I read that you went blind at that time. Did they mean blind, or what was that about?
Well, one morning I was working the graveyard shift, and I...
Just during the war? Or?
Yeah. Well, yeah, at the very beginning. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if we were... I guess we were probably at war by that time. At any rate, the carpool used to drop me off, and I used to get a trolley car and come home. And the car came along, and I couldn't read, you know, what it said. Everything had just blurred over. And it didn't get any better. And I had to ask someone. I finally, you know, I asked them to let me off at my street. And I walked up the hill, and I walked on, and said, "There's something wrong with, you know, I'm going blind." So the old lady made me a drink or something. You know, so. Went and saw the doctor, and he went like this and that. And by that time, it had, you know, sort of faded away, and I thought, well, it must be a symptom of a far broader disorder. So they put me in Physicians and Surgeons Hospital in Glendale on a 72-hour check, and I got out. I drove myself home, as I recall. And I went to the doctor's office on Tuesday. It was Sunday night, and I went to the doctor's office on Tuesday. I went in. And I had to wait a while, and then finally I was the last person called, and the doctor introduced me to another doctor. He said, "This is Dr. Black." I thought, oh, God, you know, there's a consultation. Well, as it turned out, this doctor was simply taking over his practice while he went, you know, for a drive or something. So he said, I'm very sorry to have to inform you. And I just sat down. He said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And I argued.
You wanted something to be wrong?
Well, no, but I said, you don't go blind from nothing wrong, you know.
Yeah.
So he said, and because I didn't sleep, I never slept at all. I slept, I think the longest period of sleep was about 4 hours. But I'd sleep, I go to work sometimes 3 days with only 15 minutes sleep. Couldn't make it. I sort of half sleep and half hallucinate, sort of. So he said, the reason you don't go to sleep is because you know that when you wake up you have to go to work and you hate the job. That's reasonable. So I said, well, what do you suggest I do? He said, quit. I said, quit. You know, I said, my God. I had about $18. I said, I'll starve to death. He said, things have come to a pretty pass. He said, when a big clown like you has to walk out in the street and fall down from starvation, you know, he said, it's your choice. You know, you can blow your mind or quit your job. So I quit. Didn't save my mind, but...
And you never had a vision problem again?
No, not really. Not that it isn't, you know, injury-induced.
Do you believe in that, though? So that kind of psychological, I guess that would be a psychosomatic
Well, it was a
symptom.
pretty strong case, you know, because I really hadn't slept for a year. You know, I just lived on no-dose and chewing tobacco.
Oh, you were trying to stay, you had taken things to stay awake, and you weren't taking anything to go to sleep?
I tried to sleep,
Yeah.
you know, but I can't sleep in the daytime. I learned that at that time. I changed shifts, but by that time it was so ingrained I just couldn't hack it. It's a dull subject anyway.
Oh, I love the subject of sleep. I find it fascinating.
Oh, I too.
Yeah.
I too. I loathe people who can go to sleep immediately. You know.
Yeah.
I sometimes regard my wife with great rancor and bitterness because, you know, how dare she lie there and stare. And
So
I can't find anything to do with my time either.
This has plagued you all your life, insomnia.
You know, I spend a lot of time trying to get to sleep,
Yeah.
really. It opens up all sorts of avenues of interest.
That's supposed to be one of the worst things you can have. There are a couple of good books on insomnia, but they put
Well,
you
I
to
don't have
sleep.
it chronically.
I'm sorry.
I don't have it chronic. Yeah.
Couldn't resist that.
I don't have it chronically. If I'm.
Oh, it isn't chronic.
No, if I'm, you know, living a very ordered physical life, then I sleep very well. But
That's fantastic.
if I leave the room, I can't sleep. You know, if I go outside my cell, I can't sleep too well. You know how that is.
Outside your cell.
Well, you know, if I involve myself
Ah.
a great deal, then
You must know what that made me think of, because they always talk about in your background having been on a chain gang. And that always sounds like something out of a folk song, but I never expected to meet anyone who'd been on a chain gang.
well, it
Yet
wasn't
in
much
show
of a
business.
chain gang. It's all we had. We called it home.
Well,
Chatham County Camp Number 1. Chatham County, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia.
well, it never tells in these things what you had done. And maybe you don't...
I don't know. I was just around, you know. I was busted for mopery with intent to gawk, you know. I was just...
Well,
I was only 15, you know. What could I have done?
Yeah.
They tried a shoe store robbery on me, and I just sat there. I couldn't believe it, you know. And I said, wait a minute. When did this robbery occur? And the Judge Jordan said, would the bailiff mind repeating the charge for the prisoner? So they went through the whole, you know, all the details, and it was like 4 a.m. of a Wednesday morning, you know, as near as I could figure. I said, well, I've been in jail since Sunday, and the courtroom broke up, and the judge spanked me with 180 days, you know, for making the people laugh. It wasn't my fault. You know.
No, that's...
But I matched the description. I said, well, it happened while I was in jail. I've been in the bucket, you know, for a week.
He felt that was no excuse.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Justice is justice.
Wasn't too bad.
But what was the charge originally? I mean, this was in the days when you were riding the rails?
I think just a common charge of vagrancy, you know, or, you know, preying on the people, begging, or dangerous. I think it's, parenthetically, it's a dangerous and suspicious character, potentially. Dangerous and suspicious character with no visible means of support.
That's what you were categorized as, and that's in the state of, what state was that?
Georgia.
How'd you get out of there?
That's a rather embarrassing question. They just forgot about me. You know? didn't turn up, and they didn't miss me, I guess.
But, but,
Fired a few warning shots over my head.
weren't a lot of other guys chained to your ankle?
No.
No.
No. That was a really heavy detail when you were really locked up. I've spent a very short time in chains.
So you never were you were actually in chains at one point, with other men chained to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spent a very short time in chains.
So
I looked so angelic, you know.
But if you walked away, then presumably...
I ran. I didn't walk.
Then did some lead follow you?
I heard a lot of noise.
Is it possible that you owe them any time then?
No. They just applauded my nimbleness, my speed, and because when I went to work at Lockheed, the FBI, you know, had to check me out. They said, "Look, there's a little item here about." I said, "Well, what do you suggest? That I go back?" And they said, "No, they ain't going to pay your fare back there." So I wasn't about to pay my own fare back. So.
I'm sure that
They
before
never
this...
did anything about it.
This was Georgia.
Yeah, I went back there to make a picture one time, and all the society girls would come up and say, "How do you like Savannah?" Second time around, I'd say, "In your head," and they said, "You talk." They said, "You talk just like a Yankee."
Like a Yankee. Say, I have a feeling before 90 minutes is over, a pardon is going to arrive from Governor Maddox.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's just a guess. Our local stations have a message, and we'll be right back. Talking with Robert Mitchum, as you must know by now. Let's talk a little bit about what can be a dull subject, but about success, because you've made about 100 films. And Mike Nichols gave an interview one time where he talked about success, and he said he realized after a lot of time thinking about it that what made him, part of the drive was not the so-called desire to express yourself, which is what they always say about artists and actors, but in a sense a kind of getting even with certain people in the past. I'm misquoting them maybe a little bit, but that was the idea of it, that I'll show them, people who'd made his life miserable when he was younger. And that rings a bell, I suppose, with a lot of people. Would it with you?
I'm sure that it's a valid motivation, because a fellow with whom I worked, well, the last film I made, told me in a deeply alcoholic moment that at a point he said, if I ever get out of this, and I was shocked, really, to hear it from him. But
meaning I'll get certain people, or
no, I would just rise above it, and be successful at any cost, or at any moral cost, possibly, or at.
Maybe I don't understand you. By this, did he mean the drinking?
No. He just meant, well, actually, he was in a situation, like he was in a jungle. Mm-hmm. And he said, if I ever get out of here, and it was through, he was in service to.
Yeah.
He said, if I ever make it out of here, nothing's going to stand in my way.
And that carried him.
Well, he said it.
Yeah.
As I say, I was shocked because I know him and he's a very gentle man. But.
Do you have any general theory about what drives people in Hollywood? So many.
Fear, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Of what?
Fear of failure.
Yeah.
And, and the fears that are common to everybody, fear of being run over, so you get a big, strong car. What the hell?
Yeah.
Ride around in a tank.
What about ones who've gone over the brink from Hollywood success? Marilyn Monroe, maybe, or Montgomery Clift. Could you put him in that category?
Well, those are individual instances that I'm sure are no more, probably a bit more endemic to that climate than. But in any general, hectic, frenetic business, I think it pretty well. Especially a business involving people, because you become so involved with, and I'm sure believe people you have no right to believe, or it's distortive, I should think, to values, to regular, important human values.
Mm-hmm. But do you buy the idea that show business is a sicker profession than any other? You've been in so many.
No.
Not worse.
No, not at all. Not at all, because I've seen the cold planning corporate business, you know, just steamrolling right through people and lives and purposes, and really, and you have too. So certainly, and I regard that as sick.
What about politics?
I'm really not qualified to talk about politics. The only thing I know that I recognize in politics is the need for power, and I deplore power. I mean, the use or abuse of power. I mean, I think power is collective. I think truly power is to the people. And I don't trust politicians to be truly representative of the people. No, maybe I'm sure that there are really, you know, men of high purpose and great sacrifice. I know I've seen many of them, you know. I've seen them die at it. But by and large, they become corrupted by power. I should think. You know. As far, I mean, that's my experience.
You've never been close to it or urged to go into it? Or
no way.
Have any desire to?
I have vices enough for that.
We have a station break, and we'll be right back. Talking with Robert Mitchum, how much schooling did you have? You ran away from home, they always say in the publicity flyers.
Well, I kept going back, and I don't think I ever graduated. I think they finally gave me some sort of an honorary graduation. I don't remember whether it was from Harran here in New York or from Felton High School down in Delaware. But I do know that somebody in trying to find me went to, oh, I know, it's a fellow that publishes, works for a publishing company. He's a, you know, artist and layout designer that publishes like house journals and school yearbooks, things like that, you know. And so he had to visit all the schools down in the Delmarva, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia Peninsula. And every other school claimed me. They said, oh yeah, he used to go to school, except the school I went to. Never heard of him.
What did you do?
Never, I don't know. They erased me.
Were you ever kicked out of school?
Often, yes.
What did you get kicked out for in those days?
I can't tell you. I really cannot tell you. It's too shocking. I really can't tell you.
Could you tell me something close to it, what it would be like?
Well,
what if...
one time involved a trombone in the school band.
Oh.
And I hope I'm forgiven.
I can't imagine, but I'm starting to.
And the other time, it involved a shower cap in the girls' shower. And they just came right in straight from a basketball game, you know, and just threw their shower caps on. And unfortunately, it was like one of my favorite teachers. But I was the one that laughed the hardest, so they nailed me.
Did you say you went into the girls' shower room and put a cap on?
Oh, sure.
Well, that's where to do it, I guess, if you're going to... Yeah. They frowned on that in those days. It wasn't a progressive school.
Oh, God, no. They thought it was the vilest. My mother defended me. She said, do you think he's you know, that decadent, that degenerate? They said, yes, we
And they thought they had the evidence right there.
They thought so, yeah. But I laughed a lot. But they always brought me back, I must say. They finally gave me a saxophone to entertain myself with. And changed my whole life.
Yeah.
A lot of other people's lives. You know, I don't know. They kept dismissing me and expelling me. You know, I told them, I mean, by law, I must go to school. And I was a precocious child, you know, because I would have graduated when I was 14, like, you know, but they picked you up on the street. I said, how old are you, kid? Why aren't you in school? I said, well, I graduated. No way. You know, 14, you know,
Were you big at 14?
No, I looked like a ferret. I was a little nervous, skinny.
You're kidding. Well, is this all plastic surgery? How could you be...
No, as soon as I got for to eat, I came on.
Yeah?
I went out to California and started picking things off the trees, you know. Yeah. People out there are pretty dumb. You know.
Are your friends largely outside the movies or in the movies?
Well, that's, you know, kind of an awkward question because I really don't have too many very close friends.
By
Obviously.
choice?
Probably by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not your sharp tongue or anything like that.
No, I don't think so. I'm strangely welcome in a lot of places, but I just don't think I have the energy to go.
Because I always hear that they always say one of the best liked guys in Hollywood. They say that about a lot of people.
Because I'm absent most of the time.
But do you say things you regret if you go to a party or something? I take it you don't
No.
like the cocktail party circuit and the.
I don't mind it. It's fine if you feel well, and it's a pleasant. A lot of times it's fun. Because you run into a lot of very pleasant and convivial people, and I enjoy it sometimes. I get drunk sometimes, and I get a lot of static from my old lady because I'm the last to leave or things like that. Never eat, things like that. And hostesses wringing their hands because it's lovely. Why don't you eat later? Yeah, I'll have a double. But it's. First of all, I love the British expression when you go to a party and they say, "What's this in aid of?"
What's it in aid
What's
of?
it in aid of? Yes.
Meaning what?
What's the event?
Oh,
what's
that
the-
word. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Who's? Is it a pickpockets convention? Is it what? What's happening? Who's
Yeah.
selling what? Who's got a client or who's whatever? And that makes me nervous because we give parties at my house and. Just for the hell of it, People love it, too, really. We have great parties. My wife is a great hostess, and she really has great parties. And nobody's bugged. We don't have photographers there or reporters. If we do, we still their tongues.
But if you get those invitations that say a party will be held for the screening of the new movie so-and-so, and we are sure that some very exciting people will be there and that you will please join us, RSVP.
They don't say that. They don't go on like that. They just give you the name and the date. They don't say anything about exciting people. They're afraid. They leave themselves open there, for a lot of criticism. Well, if that's what you call exciting, go play in your own sandbox.
Being a reb... Oh, I can't start this. We have a message. I want to get to this. We'll be right back. We're last talking about Hollywood and society and parties and all of that.
I've gone from Perrier water to Scotch. How about that shot?
That was Perrier water.
Indeed it was.
Yeah. Can I ask if drinking's a problem with you? I'll soon find out.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
No. I just frighten people because I can drink a great deal sometimes. And it just frightens them. They all fall down. But, I don't come up shaking, or I don't drink every day or in the morning, or, things like that.
You don't have to. A lot of actors do, don't they?
I don't think so.
They don't?
I don't think so. There are some that are... When I first started to work, I would work with people whom I thought in totally self-controlled, professional people. And I'd be standing this far from them, and I see that they're like this, just trembling. Jesus. It kind of makes me nervous.
I see that here on this kind of show on this show many times.
Yeah?
And the camera does not pick it up, which sort of ruins the old myth that the camera shows the truth, doesn't it? Because
I worked with Charlie Bickford, and he was just like a taut string, wire all the time. Just
wonder what the difference is between the people who are that way and the ones that aren't, like yourself. I don't see any muscles twitching. I don't seem to...
It's all inside.
Yeah?
Yeah. I die inside.
I'm not making you nervous. I don't overawe you in any sense.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I do. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Was camera on him when he said that? I want that to be clear.
Yes, indeed. No, because I took careful notice before I came out here.
Sized me up during the monologue, did you?
Scared me, man.
No, I must get past this, I guess, because this intrigues me. I'm sure you're tired of talking about this, but there was that one time when you were busted out in California in the days when that was a rare phrase, years and years ago, for our younger audience.
My set, it wasn't rare.
But you know what I mean, in the statistical sense. And you talked about what happened there, and that there was a sense in which you thought it was a kind of frame-up.
I didn't think so.
Oh, you didn't? I got the impression from an interview I read where they said that there was maybe somebody was out to get you. Or...
that it was, and proved it. But it happened. I couldn't care less.
The lawyers proved it, but you doubt
That's
that
right, because
that it took
later they rescinded the judgment and, you know, wiped it off the slate, and I got a letter of apology and all that jazz. They never published that, naturally, because that ain't funny.
Yeah.
But,
So it's expunged from the record.
yeah, but they needed somebody at that time, so. Abu Ben Adam, I came smiling in, Queen of the May.
But you say they needed somebody, so that implies there was some
That's
kind
what
of
they told me,
conspiracy.
they needed somebody at that time.
Who's the they?
It's a long story, really, you know.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. At that time, there was a great deal of friction between the Los Angeles County Police Department, you know, the Sheriff's Department, and the City of Los Angeles Department. And there was, you know, sort of an undeclared war, and there was a lack of total cooperation among them. And somebody who wished me not well took advantage of that. And like I say, you know, I was the last person in the world they expected to walk in. I just walked in a house, and 7 minutes later, they broke down the door.
Yeah.
And I just put my hand up like that, you know, said, hang me up. They said, Mitchum raised his arm in a threatening gesture. You know? I was just making it easy for him to cuff me, that's all.
If you want to threaten someone, you don't do it like this.
Write him a nasty letter.
Oh, is that what it is? Do you ever get in a fight? Do you often get in a fight? Let me change that.
No.
Fist fight, have you been in many?
Yeah, a lot.
Is it generally with other actors or people in other walks of life?
Whoever hits me.
I see.
What can I tell you?
Can you remember the last one?
I think I lost the last one.
Next to the last one?
No, I can't remember that one.
Yeah. I'm fascinated with violence.
Are you really? Terrifies me. I was in Ireland one time, and I was walking grooms at the sort of theatrical pub hotel. And it's a long, narrow place, and I walked in with Richard Harris and his wife then, Elizabeth, and my wife. And we were trying to find, the landlady was trying to find seating room for us, you know. And a little guy came up and plucked me like this, and snatched at me. He said, Mr. Douglas. And he snatched me a few times and said, Mr. Douglas, come on. Well, I didn't know who, I'm looking around for Mr. Douglas. So he says, come on, Kirk. He says, we know you.
Kirk.
Well, okay. So I said, he said, could I get your signature? So I said, in the second, I said, I'm trying to get the lady. He said, I insist. He said, no. So I wrote something rude, you know. I signed Kirk Douglas. So he went back in the corner, and he was sitting with 4 girls back there. A little fellow, and unfortunately, he was lame. He was a poster's apprentice. So full of pins, you know. So anyway, so he came back, and he said, hey, he said, this is for a girl. And I said, well, I'm truly sorry about that. I said, I had rather hoped it was for you. And I turned away, and when I turned away, he hit me. And he had a ring on it, just scratched my nose. That's all. And then he turned around and ran back with the girls. So I said, are you done now? I said, are you quite finished? And a guy jumped up with a red beard, and he said, I'm not done. And I said, you're done. And he was done. So I said, because if you are, I'd like to suggest that you don't, you know, make a habit of that, because you're liable to run into a reactor. And I said, you couldn't break an egg. So the landlady said, that's it, you know, everybody out. So I said, that's fine. I said, I come to a green and foreign land, walk in, get hit in the eye, and thrown out. She said, not you, love, you know. So we stayed and had a belt, you know. So I come outside. Richard Harris is haranguing the crowd, you know, that dirty Irish, and you can't get more. He's from Limerick. You can't get more Irish than him, you know. And he's screaming at the Irish. Pick him up, throw him in the car. So these 2 guards come along swinging their sticks like this, and he said, would you be after pressing charges, sir? And I said, pressing charges? For what? I said, against whom? He said, against what struck you, sir. I said, it's too funny, you know. Now the poor little guy went back, And he went to all the pubs. He says, and then I give him this, and then I done that, and then I... But unfortunately, there was about 300 witnesses. And they say, come on, tell us how you did, you know. Well, the poor bum couldn't get a drink in Ireland.
Oh, you know what's funny about that? You don't recognize me, do you, Mr. Douglas?
Beautiful.
I'm sorry. We have a message, and we'll be right back. David Lean was here not too long ago, about a month or two ago. Did you enjoy making Ryan's Daughter? Let me rephrase that. Was the film a pleasant experience for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I realized till I said it what I'd said.
It's all right.
That was probably what you were doing in Ireland.
Which?
Making the movie, I mean. Doing this. Yeah. And we have a clip from that, and we should...
I think we ought to get it on as quickly as possible.
Do you know which one it is?
What, the clip?
Yeah, do you know what part of the movie it is?
No.
Do you want to tell us anything about it? You have no idea?
No.
Okay, let's take a chance and hope you're in it. Here's a bit from Ryan's Daughter. It'll be on your screen in several seconds, those of which I'm filling right now. There are 3 left because of the leader on the film, and now there are only 2. It must be there by now.
Rose, this sort of thing can come about, you know, a girl taking a fancy to a teacher.
Thanks.
Well, fancy's all it is, Rose. Rose, you've mistaken a penny mirror for the sun. Do you not see that?
I see you, always digging a low pit for yourself when you should be standing on a heap of pride.
Well, Rose, you're coming here today and saying what you've said is the only cause I've ever had for pride. I don't you see, Rose? I only taught you about Byron and Beethoven and Captain Blood. I'm not one of them fellas myself.
I'm not daft, you know.
But you're terribly young.
Aye. And that's a hanging matter, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's not.
Well, then?
It's not a hanging matter to be young, but it maybe should be a hanging matter for a man of middle age to try and steal the youth from a young girl. Especially a man like me and a girl like you.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that part?
Yeah, I remember that.
Say, I think she liked you. That's
She never told me.
I mean, in the Sarah Miles in the
Well, what was she doing fooling around with Chris Jones then?
You know,
actions speak louder than words.
What do you think of when you're sitting here and you're seeing yourself up on a screen like that in a movie that you made maybe a year ago? What goes through your head when you're watching that?
I think I've grown better looking, that's all.
I found a quote that I hope will amuse you. It's from an old film you must have done in the 40s, I think, somewhere, because it was from James Agee's book. And he said, in this movie, he said, Bob Mitchum is so sleepily self-confident with women that when he slopes into clinches, you expect him to snore in their faces. Remember that? I knew that would amuse you, and that's why I didn't know it'd break you up, though.
No, but his anatomical direction was surprising.
How do you mean that? How do you mean that?
Oh, I see what you mean. He calls
slopes.
Oh, he's talking about kissing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. I may do, I don't know. I remember working with Janie Russell. She used to pop her chewing gum up my nose.
You're kidding.
No way.
I had her on the show recently. If I'd known that, I'd have been terrified.
Ask her about it. She probably had a duck around someplace. She's always got it hidden. We go into a take, and suddenly, pling, she'd just flip it right up my nostril.
What, did she mean to, or was it something she couldn't control?
She was just hiding it there, I guess. So the shot was over,
All right. We have a message. We'll be back.
I wouldn't give it back to you.
We're just talking about when you make a film, you always hear that the waiting kills you, the waiting making a movie. And saying that
Well, in this last case, it was sort of really a classic because they'd say, as I told you, they'd say, well, there's no possibility of your being needed for the next fortnight or 3 weeks. Why don't you pop off to London or someplace where you can be reached on 24 hours notice? We'll call you. I go like a trout for the bait, you know. And I get to London, the phone's ringing, come back. And I go back to Dublin, drive down to Dublin, from Dublin to Dingle, and sit around for 23 days and never turn a hand, you know. And people say, I had to sit by the phone because I get a call every morning about 7:30. And then they'd say, well, why don't you just wait there, Bob, until... I say, yeah, that's it. And then about 5:30 in the evening, they'd call me and say, awfully sorry about that. You shan't be needed today. Shan't be needed. It's black as the inside of a goat outside. You can't see anything, you know.
It's that black, huh?
Well, it gets dark, you know.
So what can you do? Can you read to keep from going nuts? Or what do you do with
If you can read Gaelic, you can make it, but there wasn't...
Couldn't you send for a book?
Wasn't too much happening. We just... Well, I had a bar tab of, I think, $11,000. A lot of guests.
You could read that for a while, I guess.
Good.
You write poetry, I
A lot
know.
of guests. No, that's a canard. That's...
Well, I've seen some of it.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
I won't pull it up, but you have written. Have you not sat down and written a poem once or twice in your life?
I didn't expect it to leak out, though.
Will that hurt your image in any circles?
It's not that, no. You know, I did it sort of, generally, it was sort of private, you know, and I'd throw it in a wastebasket and someone would retrieve it, you know, blackmail me with it.
And then I read that you wrote an oratorio once that was played in Hollywood Bowl.
It was a blackout, that's all.
So explain that.
I think it was, really, that's what it was. You know, I cued the music and wrote some original music on it. It was I think it was for the first Jewish refugee benefit in Hollywood Bowl. And Orson Welles masterminded the whole thing. And Benny Rubin did the number. You know, he was an old Jewish comedian. They used to laugh. Very funny guy. A great dialectician and a great guy, really. And he did the number. Yeah. And I've never been able to live it down.
Can I ask you about another rumor that you'd turned down the role of Patton?
I don't think that's... No, I would rather you didn't ask me.
Oh, all right, I won't. We'll erase it from our mind. Was it... if you had been offered the role of Patton and turned it down, would you have been sorry?
No. No.
What I'm getting at is...
All I could think of was Spain. I just come from Spain and Italy. I don't know what I was doing there. And I could think of all those tanks clanking around Almeria and get my fingers caught in them, you know. I hate artillery and tanks. I can't hack. I regard that as punitive detail. And I just couldn't see it.
When you were in the Army, was it rough? Did that same thing drive you nuts then, or is it the idea of making movies?
I just don't like sharp edges, you know.
It's the sharp edges?
Yeah.
All right. I know that when you won an Oscar, you...
I never did.
G.I. Joe, you were nominated.
Oh, yeah, but that's...
Oh, you were nominated. You did not win.
Right.
But you were not at the ceremony, so had you won, you would not have collected it, or how does that work?
I had it figured, you know, because I voted for Jimmy Dunn for Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I figured my vote would carry it, so... I couldn't go out and buy a dinner jacket just for that, could I?
No, I guess not. Would you collect an award, though, if you got one?
Oh, sure. I don't, you know, they'd have to... I don't know what it would be for.
You're
Really?
serious, then, about not having any kind of high regard for your acting?
Not at all. Not at all. I've set a very high price on it.
Yeah.
But not at all. I have a, you know, I'm a good professional actor. It's, you know, there's no great mystery about that. But as long as they're cranking it and they're paying me, but not off, I ain't.
Not off.
Off, I'm a different breed of cat entirely. You know, it's,
When you've made what are considered your best films, like the one you made with the only film that Charles Laughton directed, Night of the Hunter, was that a pleasurable experience for you, more than the ones you could maybe consider just a bread and butter
I think
picture?
they were all pleasurable, really.
Yeah.
I mean, much later I became very conscious of waste. I mean, why would they make a film that is, you know, that has so little chance, and why would they do it so badly, and all those things, you know? I mean, I was very conscious of just the waste of time, and it's just, I suppose it kept people employed. I mean, that's the only possible excuse for a great many of them. But I always felt that they could do much better, and I was very disappointed. Like, for instance, during the war, you could put a sign on a marquee that said closed, and people would queue up for 4 blocks to see closed, you know. And at that time, they could have done, really, you know, they made some advances, but instead of that, they reached down in the bottom of the drawer and they took out all the dreck that they'd been gathering for years that those agents had palmed off on them, you know. And they made it, and people were subjected to it. And I don't believe that's fair, really. Truly, you know, I think that the people deserve something for their attention, you know. And
Have you ever been in a film you were so ashamed of you just wanted to quit?
Oh, no, I tough it out. You know, I mean, it's not my fault. That gets to be a bad deal, too, because very often in reviews, I'll appear in a, you know, really a mundane, not mundane, very ordinary or less than ordinary film. And, but I don't get rapped for it, except for my presence. You know, saying, why is he there? But I don't get bad marks for it, and that's really dirty pool, you know. You're hitting a cripple.
To blame the actor?
Well, no, I mean, they don't blame me.
Oh.
They just say it's a, you know, it's a piece of nothing. But they say Mitchum was all right. I mean, they don't find fault with me, except just my yawning my way through it, you know, just strolling through, picking up the, you know, check at the end of the season. But they don't, I mean, I don't get rapped.
And you feel
much.
a little less...
And, well, it's unfair because in that case, I should do much better work, really. I mean, I should just have always held out for much better work. And I'm sorry to say that I haven't always done that. I mean,
You've got more than your share of bad films.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I used to say it in front. You know, of course, at a time, I was under contract to RKO, 10 years. And I know a lot of it was worthless. And I told them that it was worthless. And sometimes they were affronted, you know, that I would tell them that, because I mean, after all, they've got to be convinced that it's good, which dropped them, in my estimation, as sincere people, you know. But it worked out very well. I mean, I was like teacher's pet, and if I wanted the wall painted purple, they painted purple, you know. They give me a chair with my name on it and jazz like that. It all worked, and they paid me, so.
Okay. When we come back, we'll take a look at it, just a moment from Night of the Hunter. If you don't mind. We'll be right back. We're back. When I said this is we were going away from there, I said, we're going to take a look at this clip, and you said, good, I've never seen it, and I thought you were kidding, meaning you've never seen the film. Do you go to any of your films?
I went to Ryan's Daughter.
Yeah.
That's the last one I can recall. Saying I ran one at the house. About a week ago, a couple of weeks ago, 60 millimeter, to my embarrassment. But the good guys and the bad guys. I enjoyed George Kennedy and the Colorado, or rather New Mexico scenery. That was nice.
I'm sure people find that very hard to believe that you could get into the movies, which is difficult enough, and then not go see yourself once you're in them. But I believe you. I know you're glad to know that.
I mean, you know, maybe I'll spend just take a year off and just sit there and witness myself. For it's a little late, but
let's take a look at that clip. It's from Night of the Hunter.
Ah, little lad, you're staring at my fingers. Would you like me to tell you the little story of right hand, left hand? The story of good and evil? H-A-T-E. It was with this left hand that old brother Cain struck the blow that laid his brother low. L-O-V-E. You see these fingers, dear hearts? These fingers has veins that run straight to the soul of man. The right hand, friends, the hand of love. Now watch and I'll show you the story of life. These fingers, dear hearts, is always a warring and a tugging, one against the other. Now watch 'em. Old brother left hand hates a fighting, and it looks like love's a goner. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hot dog loves a winning. Yes, sirree. It's love that won. And old left-hand hate is down for the count.
Did you mind seeing that?
It's a little embarrassing.
Is it?
I think so. It was to me, yeah.
It's a little embarrassing for you to watch that?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. Why?
I don't know why. It's just, I found it embarrassing.
A man looking at himself on a screen seems silly. Huh?
It is kind of, you know.
Spencer Tracy said once in some quote that that it's no profession for a man acting. I don't know what mood he was in when he said that or why, but it's interesting.
Well, I guess that's about the only way he could phrase it or attempt to phrase it. One feels that way, you know. You figure you should be out building a bridge or digging a ditch, you know, or jacking up a tire or something, you know,
Yeah.
stealing a car or something. Not making faces, you know, getting all painted up and making faces, you know.
Do you care if your kids go in the
Pretending
profession?
to be someone else. Man, you know, as long as they stay off the streets, I don't care what they do.
Have you ever... It's such a rough life, they say, to be a star and to go through all the junk you have to go through and all. Have you ever felt close to any kind of crack up?
All the time. Every morning, man.
Are you putting me on now?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh.
No. No, I don't think so.
I wondered if
I probably have been, you know, and I probably, some of my my more spectacular deportment is due to just nerves, you know.
Nerves.
Yeah.
Do you
But,
disparage psychoanalysis or psychiatry? Have you ever encountered it?
No, but it's like you got to save it up. It's like going to the barber shop, you know. You're wasting a lot of time sitting there, man. A lot of things are happening, you know.
Yeah.
And you got to park your car, go in, lie down on the couch, you know, whatever. But, you know, I can't hack that.
You'd rather do something new than talk about something
Yeah,
old.
I just like to keep fooling around.
Hmm?
I'm sure that, you know, if people feel that they need something. I mean, I went to a psychoanalyst one time, and he said, I don't understand why you're here. And I said, I don't either. And he said, well, why are you here? And I said, my family sent me. And he said, why? And I said, because they felt that no normal person acts as I do. And he said, you haven't even asked me what my fee is. I said, I don't care. He said, what do you mean you don't care? I said, well, there's only so much to go around, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I handle my family's case, so if they run short, I said, I left it at the shrinkers. You know? So he said, but you know what your problems are. I mean, really, you know, and I mean, you can recall. I mean, I really do have, you know, almost total recall. Yeah. And he said, you know what your hang-ups are, what your problems are. He said, you don't need anybody to tell you. You don't need any, you know, any path out. And I said, that's right.
Hmm.
He said, well, drop by again from time to time. He said, I'd like to talk to you, but...
It made him feel good, probably.
Yeah.
Gee, that's good. We have a message. We'll be right back. We're just talking about... What if you say, if someone says to you, you've got 2 weeks off now to go and relax the way you enjoy it most, how would you do that?
Depends on the weather.
Yeah.
Really. I think I'm going down to the Bahamas and then going down to another quiet, well-hidden little island, a little free port down in the Caribbean.
After 100 or so movies, is there any place you can go and people say, name please, when they look in your face?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's amazing. I think everyone would know it.
When I walked in here.
Our doorman is a little nearsighted. I think that's probably... I read a thing that a woman columnist wrote about you one time, and she said Mitchum was born the kind of man that does not have to seek women because they come to him.
Were that true?
That's not true?
Well, they come to me with their troubles, you know.
Yeah. Is there... And do they leave with them? I don't know what I mean by that. I don't expect you...
No.
No idea.
I absorb some of them. You know, you can cheer him up a little. No, as a matter of fact, I got married really when I was about 16. So I've been married all my life. And before that, I just didn't know, you know. And my wife rather frowns on any dalliance with anyone else. So
A lot of women do that, don't they?
yeah. Hey, listen, I got a, you know, in the morning of the earthquake, in various areas of town, of course, it affected various places differently. But my brother went to work, I think, last week before last, on Ironside. So he's sitting in the makeup chair, and this guy's painting his head. And he said, earthquake bother you? And Jack said, no, not really. He said, scared the bejesus out of me. But he said, I looked around, he said, there were no cracks, and, you know, everything seemed to be all right. He said, we've got dirty brown water. And the guy said, oh, yeah, well, we all have that out in this end of the valley. And the guy said, man, he said, I really tore it. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, I came home from a, quote, union meeting, quote, bowling, quote, you know, anything. Came falling in at 3 o'clock in the morning or something and fell heavily on my bed of pain. And he said, I woke up, and out where I live, he said, everything was happening, man. He said, I thought it was Armageddon. He said, I thought it was the Lord's own justice on me, you know. And I thought it was the end of the world, really. And he said, I reached over and clutched my wife, and he said, we just stared at each other like that while the whole thing spun around, and you could hear it rumbling and roaring and things breaking. And he said, I really thought this was it. You know, an earthquake was the furthest thing from my mind, just repentance, you know, because I had a shocking hangover. And so he said, honey, he said, I think, he said, I've got to tell you before I go, he said, I've been fooling around with your sister. She said, about 7 o'clock, she said, what? And he said, those aftershocks didn't bother me at all, man. He said, I was praying for a big one. True. How about that for a cop-out?
That's there's that reminds me of something, I guess. I've never been in an earthquake, but it would be enough to make a man religious. Are you so?
Religious?
Yeah.
Not formally, no. No.
It's odd for a man who has written poetry to not have some sense of eternity, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's quite ordinary. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I don't know. I know.
I'm willing to reject the question.
I should, you know, quit turning me on and then turning me off again, because
Okay. You're part Indian.
Yeah.
Blackfoot.
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder about your ancestors? I wonder if they were any of the ones that were massacred in
No.
Montana?
Matter of fact, my Indian people came from South Carolina. And there's, I mean, I have seen it written that there's a great mystery, you know, about the presence of the Blackfoot Indian in South Carolina. And first of all, they were not nomadic, but they were sort of the scout tribe. They were, you know, it is said, I don't know, it's a popular old wives' tale that the United States Supreme Court was modeled on the Blackfoot Tribal Council. But they knew what the weather conditions were and what grass conditions were all around the country, you know. General, you know, conditions were all over the country. They were the first horse Indians, actually. And they brought the horses up from Mexico. They heard about these fabulous creatures, and they just sent people down there to bring them up. Anyway, I would think that, you know, partially due to their proclivity for peregrination, and possibly due to the return of the Lewis and Clark expedition, that they might have brought back a few squaws, you know, just to keep it even. But I remember my father was Indian on both sides of his family. I had a great-grandmother or grandmother named Alice Pat. I mean, that was it. Flat out, that was her name.
Alice what?
Alice Pat.
That was all her whole name?
That's it. Make it easy on yourself. Alice Pat. What's your grandmother's name? Alice Pat. What's her last name? What?
We have to take a brief
Tomahawk.
message. We'll be right back. We have no time left. This time has flown by. I find you one of the most easy men to talk to I've ever met in my life, and it's a great pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come again sometime.
Thank you.
for me.